"Miss Lourdes," the boy said, tugging her sleeve before the other children arrived. "Are you going to leave us?" Lourdes Vane crouched down to his level, the way she always did, so that the world looked the same size to both of them. Stellan was 5 years old, small for his age, with serious eyes that noticed everything, and a habit of asking the questions no one else would. She looked at him for a moment before answering. Outside the classroom window, the October sky was the flat gray of a day that couldn't decide what it wanted to do. "Why would you ask that?" she said quietly. He shrugged, looking at the floor. "My last teacher left, and the one before her." A pause. "They always go when things get hard." Lourdes put her hand on his small shoulder. "I'm here today," she said. "That's what I can promise you right now." It was the most honest thing she could offer him. She wasn't sure, standing in that cold classroom with the heating unit broken for the 6th week straight and 3 months of unpaid salary behind her, that she could promise much more. Lourdes Vane was 26 years old and had wanted to teach since she was 9, which was the age she realized that her 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Albright, was the reason she believed she was capable of anything at all. She had finished her education degree and taken the position at Millward Community School because it was in the neighborhood where she had grown up, underfunded, overlooked, the kind of school that cycled through teachers the way gas stations cycle through cashiers. She told herself she would be different. She had meant it. The salary delays had begun in August, a district funding dispute, she was told, temporary. It was now November. She had been covering her rent with savings that were nearly gone and the occasional weekend shift at a copy center that paid $11 an hour. She had not told her students. She had not told her colleagues, most of whom were managing the same impossible arithmetic with the same quiet, exhausted dignity. The classroom itself was a study in institutional neglect. 3 desks with broken legs propped on textbooks, a whiteboard with a permanent marker stain across one corner that no solvent had touched, a heating unit that made a sound like a small trapped animal when it worked at all, which it hadn't since September. Lourdes brought a space heater from home in October. The school principal thanked her and made no other arrangement. Stellan Vane, no relation, a coincidence that had made Lourdes smile on the first day of school, was the student she thought about most, not because he was the brightest, though he was very bright, because he was the most careful. He watched the classroom the way children watch things they're afraid of losing, with a quiet, concentrated attention that told her he understood, at 5 years old, that good things were not guaranteed to stay. He came to school in the same 3 shirts on rotation, always clean, always slightly too small. He brought his lunch in a plastic grocery bag. He never complained about anything. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave, not because he was slow, but because Lourdes had come to suspect that school was the warmest place available to him. She had tried to reach his family twice through the standard channels and received no response. The enrollment form listed a father, one Gideon Vane, with a phone number that went to voicemail. She left 2 messages politely and heard nothing back. On the morning of November 14th, Lourdes sat in her empty classroom before the children arrived and looked at the resignation letter she had typed the night before on her phone. It was not dramatic. It was simply honest. She could not continue without income. The situation was not sustainable. She was sorry. She had read it 4 times. She had not yet sent it. She was still looking at it when Stellan came in, 12 minutes before anyone else, and stood in front of her desk with both hands behind his back.
"I made you something," he said. He produced a folded piece of paper. Not notebook paper, but the heavier kind, cream-colored, the sort that comes from a good stationery set. He held it out with both hands the way children offer things they have decided are important. She took it, unfolded it. The handwriting inside was not a 5-year-old's. It was careful, adult, measured. But the signature at the bottom was Stellan's. She recognized the looping S he had been practicing. Dear Miss Lourdes, my son comes home from your classroom every day and tells me what he learned. Not the lessons. He tells me how you crouched down to his height, how you stayed late to help him with letters, how you brought a heater so the room wasn't cold. He is 5 years old and he notices everything. I have not been a present father this year. I was finishing something that I told myself was for him. I see now that while I was doing that, you were doing something for him too, without pay, without recognition, without being asked. I don't know how to correct what the district has failed to do, but I am going to try. Please don't go. G. Vane. Lourdes read it twice. She looked up at Stellan, who was watching her with his serious, careful eyes. Your father wrote this? She said. He nodded. He said to give it to you before school. He said it was important. A pause. He cried a little when he wrote it. He didn't know I saw. Gideon Vane was 33 years old and had built a modest software company over 8 years that had, in the past 18 months, grown beyond anything he had planned for. He had been in acquisition negotiations since July, the thing he had told himself was for Stellan's future, and had been, in the honest accounting he made of himself that November, almost entirely absent from his son's present. His wife had left 4 years ago. It had been just the two of them since then, with a rotating arrangement of nannies and aftercare programs that Gideon paid for and felt guilty about and did not change. He had listened to Stellan's daily school reports with half his attention for 3 months. Then, one evening in early November, Stellan had said very quietly, "Papa, I think Miss Lourdes is sad. I think she might leave. She looked at her phone today the way you look at hard things." Gideon had put down his laptop. He had looked at his son. He had felt something realign. He called the school district the next morning, then a school board contact, then his attorney regarding what a private individual could and could not do to resolve a public salary dispute. Then he called in a debt from a city council member he had helped 3 years ago, quietly and without expectation. The letter to Lourdes he wrote last, alone at the kitchen table at 11 at night, because some things needed to be said directly and personally, regardless of what else was being arranged. The salary dispute resolution came through 6 days later, back pay for every teacher in the district, a restructured funding agreement, a timeline. Lourdes learned about it from her principal on a Tuesday morning. She did not know then what had moved it forward. She found out gradually, the way these things emerge, through a colleague who knew a board member who mentioned a name. She did not bring it up to Stellan. She simply kept teaching. On the last day before winter break, Gideon Vane appeared at the classroom door for the first time, tall, quieter than she expected, with Stellan's same careful eyes. He waited until the children had been collected before coming in. He stood in the doorway of the cold, imperfect classroom and looked at the heater spacer in the corner, and the propped-up desks, and the whiteboard stain, and the construction paper stars the children had made that were taped to the window in a crooked, joyful row. "Thank you for staying," he said. Lourdes looked at him, then at Stellan, who was watching her with the expression of someone waiting to see if a good thing would hold. "I made a promise," she said simply, "to be here today." Stellan looked up at his father. "He always keeps them," he said. Teaching is not a transaction. It is a decision made daily, to show up, to stay, to believe that the child in front of you is worth every uncomfortable, underpaid, unheeded morning. Kindness sustained under pressure is not just virtue, it is the thing that changes lives, including, quietly, your own. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.